Hey guys, before we get into today's episode, I want to first of all take this time out to say a big thank you to every one of you that have taken the time out of your day to tune into the African Mavericks podcast. I know it sounds like a cliche to say this, but it really does mean the world to me that you guys are taking the time out to listen to the content, to engage with it, to share it with your friends and your network. I couldn't be more grateful, and I just want to say thank you. I also want to use this opportunity to showcase this merch design that we currently have available on the website, Jollof and Justice for All. So if you're Team Jollof, come get you one. If you're also someone who's had to fight for your plate of jollof rice, trust me, I grew up in a house of 6 kids, so I know the struggle. But yeah, if you're one of those, we made this t-shirt just for you, or this design just for you. So head over to africanmavericks.com and go copy you one or two for you or your family members. We also have some beautiful designs on there that speaks to the African Maverick in you. So I'll be looking forward to getting some notifications that you guys have made your purchases. Without much further ado, let's dive right into today's episode. You guys are gonna love and get a lot of value from the conversation I had with a guest. So let's go. All right. Ibukun, thank you for agreeing to have this conversation with me on the African Mavericks podcast. Usually, how I like to start the conversations is, if you would indulge me, by doing a quick mindful practice. Are you familiar with breath work and all that? Meditation. Okay. So I'd like us to take 3 deep breaths. As you do so, set an intention for how you want the conversation to go. Cool with that? All right.
Good.
Okay. All right.
Good.
Okay. You're good to go? Awesome. So how I'd like to start is by asking you to share a story of your journey so far. You can go as far back as you want, maybe secondary school, childhood, whatever it is. And in doing so, share some pivotal moments that led you to what you're doing today.
Okay. I think I'll just kind of give some context of like how I grew up, where I grew up, family structure and stuff like that. Because I think it's not obvious where it would come out, but I'm sure I'll link it up in the conversation. So I'm the first of 5 kids. Grew up in Port Harcourt. Was born and lived in Port Harcourt till I was at least 12. I then my dad moved to France, so the family had to move along. I spent about 2.5, 3 years there, and then I singly had to move to Canada. I wasn't even 16 yet. That kind of evolved into the regular path of, high school. So I did grade 12 and then uni, worked for a couple of years, did my master's and on and on. But anyways, some interesting pivotal points that have kind of shaped where I am today. I think one that I would like to point to is when I was 8 years old. If you asked me what I wanted to be, I would say I want to be a rap artist, scientist. And just because, I thought it was really cool that I could resonate with rappers because I always had this thing for writing and poetry and that type of thing. From my parents, my dad is an engineer, my mom is a mathematician. And so science was just, or STEM or whatever, was not an option. You had to do well or do well. If you ever came with anything less than an A/B grade, my mom would be like, "How dare you? Your mom is a mathematician. You can't fail math." So, so for me, I think that's kind of like what shaped us. And then my mom's dad was a musician. I should say an instrumentalist, a multi-instrumentalist. He was an organ player at like his church, like an Anglican church. And so he was very musically oriented, and he would like really hone that musicality in us, like because we were really close to our granddad, as we would call him. So that kind of like shaped my ability to be very much in touch with my what you would call artistic and STEM or science side. And to the point where like where I am now, where I've spent several years as an engineer in the medtech industry, now working on my own company, but I'm still very much in with my artistic side. I've released several EPs, albums, and yeah, like I'm and my goal is really to encourage kids, especially the young ones, because they're still young, to be like, hey, like you don't have to choose, like you have to embrace your full self. And even for any of my friends too that will be open to hearing me out on that, I mean, you can see this kind of embracing your two sides. You can see that it's becoming rampant today, and I love to see that, because I don't think it was ever supposed to be separate, you know. But yeah, I'll pause there. I think my story is a little all over the place, but yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. My eyes glimmered when you said rap artist. I was like, did I hear that well? But you kept on going and you were like, you have EPs. I would want to hear.
They're not all rap. I mean, I did my first attempt of rap in my last EP, which was like I just really wanted to get it out of my system.
Okay.
Really, I mean, I feel like it's subject to anyone who listens to it to tell me what they want. But the important thing is I expressed it, and that's it. But yeah, I
I
do all sorts of music.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. You have to drop the link for me to listen to it after this. But interested to hear how you've gone from Port Harcourt to France to moving on your own to Canada. What I want to talk about next is like the influences and mentors you've had on the journey. You had touched lightly on your mom, also your mom's dad, but could you maybe speak more on that? Speak on their influences on your life and even other influences and mentors that you've had on the journey. So,
Sure. Okay, so my mom, I think my mom has a huge influence. I'm not trying to say my dad was not awesome. Of course, my dad is awesome. But my mom
yes.
particularly had a lot of influence on our lives. Like I said, we're five kids. And it was mostly because we spent a lot of time with her. My dad was, always in the office or like offshore or whatever. So I think she was her parenting style, which was like it was kind of like where you could tell she was very intrigued by her kids, and so we kind of like embraced that. And she would. I mean that music part. She's not necessarily the most musical person in the world, but like she loves music, and we were always surrounded by music. So yeah, my mom has always been that free spirit, and I think it kind of reflects in how like we as her kids, kind of are in the world. So my grandfather, who's late now, I think a lot of his influence was, with the music. He was the kind of person that would lighten up the room. He's the kind of person that like had jokes for days. I wish I was half as funny as he was. He didn't pass the gene on to me. But yeah, that's really what, and that really, I think if you took my grandfather out of the picture, I don't think I would have explored as I have my musical side. So that was really important for me. And then other influences, I'll say, like, when I just rewind back to like high school, there was a particular teacher that I really connected to, and I think he helped me again to work on my poetic side. It was my English teacher in GS2 or something like that. And he created this press club, where we had to come up with poems every week. So that was nice. Fast forward to, I mean, there's nobody that really pops up as very prominent. Apart from like more recently, I have basically a mentor, coach, friend, person that has really influenced my life. Adora Mbello, I don't know if you know her. But yeah, like, just the way just watching her again embrace, that multi-potentiate expression kind of encouraged me as well to not like turn off any taps, if that makes any sense. I refer to the different expressions as taps. And so, yeah.
I do know of Dora Belu, and she has inspired me from afar as well. I do
Mm.
I do like how she carries herself. So
Yes.
next set of questions I want to talk about or ask you around the challenges you've faced. You know, could you speak on like a major challenge or like if a challenge or obstacle that you've had to overcome and, you know, the lesson you learned from that?
So I would like to kind of probe a bit when you say challenge, because challenge is very wide. What context?
So in the context of, you know, how you've navigated your, I want to say career, let's put it in that context. Because I want to believe that's like a major part of your life right now. So
Yes, I would say one big challenge I remember that I had was coming out of my bachelor's. Like let's even rewind. Let's rewind. I think from okay, so some other thing just popped up when I started that. So first of all, when my family, my parents and everyone moved to France, I was prior to that from Nigeria, I was a very like high performing child. You know those people that would be first in class and that was all carried on.
you look
So
like them, by the way.
so we moved. And like, so this, the where we moved to was like a small village. They didn't really have a English school. And so I think I was one of the oldest in the school and like my class was the highest. They didn't even have my class. So I had to kind of like, my parents actually homeschooled me during that period. But I was still going to school, but I was not learning anything new particularly. And so what the big challenge there for me was like just hearing particularly from one of my teachers who was supposed to help me. I don't know if you know IGCSE, it's a Cambridge exam in the UK system. And so I had kind of like said I wanted to do the exam. And the school was like, what do you mean? Like, okay, we'll have to register. Like, but you need to be sure that this is something you want to do. And I was like, yes, that's what I want to do. But I had this teacher from school that kept saying to me that I cannot do it. I did mock exams, she would fail me. And it was just a very crushing time. I was like, what, 14 or 15? But I would say like that was one of the things where I felt, when you go back in life and you're like, that you ever felt like, wow, life can be tough. I mean, that was me then, right? And for me, like being able to overcome that. So what had happened was after that scenario, the teacher left. I did the Cambridge exams, and I actually got straight A's. I think I got one B, but the rest of it were A's. And it was like I think 8 courses or something like that. But for me, it was the fact that I had gone through that, hiccup, right? I had gone through that time where like this teacher, like literally, she would sit me down every day and was like, "I don't think you can make this. You are like," I think she probably had things she was dealing with internally. It was kind of weird, and so I'll go home and cry and things like that, right? But yeah, like that, I think that shaped me, right, in a way, because I was like, yeah, like there's really nothing I cannot do if I put my mind to it, because it was a situation where like I literally was the driver of my education at that time, and I was so young. Like I literally was the one I'll pull out the curriculum and like plan out everything and teach myself. Like I said, my parents were also part of that process, but they were only taking like 2 out of 6 courses off of my plate. But just seeing me come out of that was very encouraging. Some other challenges that have come up, I'll say, was like after my bachelor's, there was a lot of like imposter syndrome that I had to deal with and navigate. Where I thought, okay, I've spent 4 years studying to be a biomedical engineer. I don't feel like I know jack. And like it was just a lot of mental, like a mental obstacle I had to, or mountain, if you will, that I had to climb. So what eventually happened was I think at some point I was just tired of the environment I was in, and I decided I wanted to move to Nigeria. And I did that for a year, did my NYC. But yeah, you talked about challenges, so I've picked up 2 points. I don't know if that's enough for you. Or want me to keep going?
That's good. The next, that kind of leads into how do you, to called handle setbacks now? Like over time, how have you learned to handle setbacks when they come up?
Okay,
Because you
I think.
mentioned how,
Sorry, go ahead, please.
I was just saying, you mentioned how like it was a mental hurdle that you had to scale. So I'm guessing like that taught you some, tricks on how to handle challenges when you're faced with them now. So could you share any that you consciously use?
I don't think I'm an expert at scaling hurdles because I think right now I'm in one and I'm like, okay, this is new. How do I move? But I think beautiful thing, one of the beautiful things about facing challenges that I've learned to appreciate and embrace is the fact that it brings something new out of you, right? There's some things that would just never come out. There's some gold mines that would just never be found until you go through certain things in life. You So that's the mind. Not to say that it makes it any easy per se, but like for me, it just kind of helps me go through it, right? With with hope, right? It helps me go through it with, you know, I know that I'm not doing this. This is not going to be a waste. If you get what I mean. So yeah, I mean that's the mindset I try to carry. Like I said, I feel like I'm in a weird space, challenging phase right now because I'm doing something that I've never really done in my life, which is like go full throttle trying to start a company and like literally run two organizations, which is crazy. But when I look back, it was a conversation I was having with some friends in December, and it just kind of came up, and and it struck me that this particular thought that, and this was even before the challenges as I am facing them right now came up. And I think it was somewhat of like a preparation. The fact that I felt like I was trying to access some parts of myself, but I wasn't getting access to it, right? And I felt like there were some things I needed to go through to access it,
Mm.
right? So that's really how I see it.
So that's an insightful perspective on, at least for me, because I can 100% relate with, the truth that there are certain parts of you, gold mines, like you said, that you can't find until you go through some challenging situations. And, looking back on my journey, that has been my reality. Even the phase I'm currently in now, that's my current reality. So I can relate with that 100%.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think
so,
2024 is the year,
oh yeah, I agree with you on that. We're all going through it this year.
the year of the gold mine. That's the way I see it. The year of the gold mine.
That's a good one. That's a good one. So, like I told you earlier, the whole idea of this let's not call it platform, this project. Thank you for that conversation we had earlier because it actually, ingrained in my mind not to be calling this a platform because yeah, it's beyond that. But this project is to promote independent thinking and purposeful living amongst young Africans, right? So in that context, if I ask you how would you describe living purposefully? How would you describe that? What does it mean to you?
The way I'll see it is essentially where you are able to find, the I want to call it like your map, your blueprint, and follow it. And I don't think it's something that anybody has like completely figured out. But I think the way life is set up is like it's one clue leading to the other, and so you have to keep searching. In a way, you have to keep being intentional about discovering, right? So I think purpose is very very unique to different people. It can look very differently for each of us, and it's really about you know trying with as much of life as you have to express it fully. A picture that comes to mind is like, if you've ever seen a melon seed versus an orange seed versus an apple seed, you know, these are very different fruits, and they're very tiny, and when you put them in the ground, they bear different kinds, different, like the fruits have distinct features and things like that. And so that's how I see people, and each and every one of us, like, you know inside of us is that purpose, the same way that an orange seed has that purpose to be this orange looking, sweet tasting, juicy ball, if you will. And a watermelon has a purpose of being this outside green, pink on the inside, very watery fruit. So I think we're all on that journey, right? To become the full expression of what has been ingrained, inside of us. And yeah, that's my take on purpose. I think it's a journey rather than a destination.
Yeah. Well, I love the analogy there of the seeds because I've never really looked at it that way, but it makes a lot of sense. Like they all start out as seeds, right? And they look differently. Oh, they look different, sorry. But they all have the same, would I say, common purpose, which is to turn into a fruit, but turn into a fruit in your own way.
In your own way, yeah.
That's an interesting perspective. What steps do you currently take to discover your purpose or to live out your purpose? Is that something you intentionally do?
Yeah. And I think it goes back to that thing I mentioned about like one clue leading to the next. So one of the ways I do that is, whatever that feels natural, like, for example, me deciding to do music or to write. Like before I went on to do that, there was always a sense of like, I feel like this is something that I should be doing. There's a sense of like, there's this gifting that I have. And I think that being able to express, not just having the idea or having the thought, okay, I would go and do the music or write the song or whatever, but expressing it, intentionally expressing it, I think is part of living out purpose. And you would only be able to unlock the next level of that when you're able to express the one in front of you. Right. So yes, I might be starting off as like, okay, I thought to do an EP, I thought to write a song. But you never know what that would unlock. Right. Or for example, I like to bring it more or something more tangible. I decided when I was young, okay, I want to be a biomedical engineer because I like to help people, but I don't think I like to see people in pain. Right. And then on going on that journey, I discover research. I discover like this is something that I enjoy. Being able to independently have a plan to investigate things and figure out, okay, how does this work? How can we make a method out of this? And then maybe that going on. So, okay, I finished that. And then certain doors open to me as, okay, because you've done that independent research, you're now like an R&D engineer and you now have access to understanding how AI algorithms work and things like that. And then you finish that and then the next door opens. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like you realize that even though they're different expressions, there's probably a common thread. So my strategy or my tactic personally is just to never shut out ideas or thoughts, because I feel like the fact that it's coming from me shows that it's part of me.
Mm.
To the best of my ability, I try to express it. It may not be as grand as like I might not have all the resources to make it like the grandest thing in the world, but I would express it the best way that I know how. For some people, they may not be able to like maybe get their music and get the full production done, but they can start with writing the music or going to some show in like some coffee shop or whatever to express that part of them, right? So yeah, it's that's my take on it. Like just keep expressing, don't shut out your thoughts, like work out the muscle of bringing your dreams to reality.
Okay. That's a quotable. Work out the muscle of bringing your dreams to reality. So independent thinking, what does that mean to you? Like, how would you describe that to be an independent thinker?
So I want to make sure I get the right context for that question. Are you asking because I mentioned that, or you had that? Is that from
Oh,
your
that's
context?
yeah, that's from my
Okay, from your
the
context.
plat yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
the platform promotes independent thinking
Yeah,
and
thinking,
purposeful
gotcha,
living. Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, because if I took it from another angle, you're probably wondering what I'm saying. Okay, so
Take it from that angle. If you don't mind, please take it from that angle, whatever angle you wanted to take it from.
No, because no, I just mentioned like when I was giving an example, I was talking about independent research and stuff like that. So I don't think that's relevant to you, to this topic, to this conversation. But yeah, independent. So the question is, what is my take on
Hmm.
independent thinking?
Yeah, being an
Well,
independent thinker.
yeah, I think it kind of ties into one of the objectives that the non-for-profit organization that I run, what we're trying to do with kids is independent thinking is a lot of like rather than taking what you're given or how things are, the ability to be curious, the ability to question, the ability to challenge the way things are being done, right? So, so I mean that's the only way you can have your own personal stance on certain things, right? Because otherwise, you're just being a default thinker where, like, oh, because a lot of people think this way, so therefore, I'm just going to adopt it, But I think independent thinking is someone who doesn't just take it because everybody thinks that way. Like, they're rather more okay. So why are we thinking this way? Can you give me some context? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're just randomly taking a stand, but for whatever stand that you're taking, you have you have solid backing for why you're standing behind it, right? And personally, I think it's exhausting to have such a stance for every single thing in life. I mean, there's some things you just be neutral about just because it's not something you care about so much. There's some things that you feel strongly about, and you should have your good reasons why you are standing behind them.
Do you have or can you share an experience in your life where thinking independently about that situation or that event led to like a breakthrough
Hmm.
or like a
To a breakthrough. It's a very interesting question. I don't know, like nothing really pops to mind right now. I could just say that I'm definitely in a space where I mean, because I feel like for anyone who is entrepreneurial, anyone who's starting something off from scratch, like
Mhm.
there's a level of independent thinking that you're having because there are a lot of people that are not doing what you're doing because for one reason or the other. But you, on the other hand, are deciding that hey, this is something that I think can work, and these are the reasons why, and I might be one in very few people that believe it, right? And so I said that to say that I think right now I'm in that phase where like for sure I can see that like I'm intentionally there's a lot of stakes, there's a lot of things at stake from that independent thinking, and your question was where it paid off, right? I'm in the process of watching it pay off,
Mm.
but yeah, I mean I think if I go just back to like more fundamental things, like and maybe one thing I've mentioned already on this call, that ability, in spite of like my teacher sitting me down and saying like you can't write this exams, I see you're going to fail, and being able to say hey, not to say that she didn't influence me because obviously I'll go home and cry, but I was able to still come out of that and still kind of come out on the other side. So it did pay off, right? Where like I didn't just let her words influence me negatively, but I was able to come out of that and kind of like oppose it because that's the only way I would have been able to succeed.
Okay. Thanks for that answer. So I think we've spoken about lessons, but well, let me ask, what's the most valuable lesson you've learned in
Good questions. Most valuable lesson.
I should have warned you that we're gonna go deep, eh?
Oh my gosh, I feel like I'll say the most valuable lesson and then I'll be in bed tonight and I'm like, crap, there was something else. But I'll just I'll just say whatever pops to mind. It may
Yeah.
not be what I think is the most valuable. Um, maybe close. I'll say it's the lesson of being true to yourself. And being true to yourself, I'm not saying that just generically. How would I put this? It's like the ability to know how to contain yourself, to be holding yourself. Not to say that obviously independent of God, but what I think I'm getting there is where you're able to realize that everything that you require, everything that you need is on the inside of you, right? And yes, we are not solo beings. We depend on each other and that type of thing. But you have to also understand that you are your own universe. Like there's so much inside of you, right? And your place in the world is very dependent on how in tune you are with that. How you're able to show up for others depends on how in tune you are with that, right? So it's very important that as much as we're not independent beings, we're supposed to show love and care for one another. We can't do that fully without like being in touch with all the things that are inside of you, all the things that God has placed inside of you. So that's one. Some other thing comes to mind also, the ability to learn to realize that love is the most important thing in the world, and it's not just about, okay, like I need to just love people because, or like how the world would put it, as like where it's almost like a transaction, or whatever. But like being able to love independent of, and again, I think it ties to that first one, where it's you're able to be so secure in yourself, they're able to just kind of show love to people without expecting anything in return, because you understand that you are a complete being, right?
Mm.
um you're you're able to just show up like fully secure. And I don't like everybody comes with their insecurities, and it's human, right? But I think the lesson there, and what, because you asked for a lesson, is knowing that yes, there's sometimes that I would have that insecurity, but the reality is I'm a secure being, and I just need to be in touch with that. I need to always learn to journey back to that place
Mm.
of wholeness, so that I can be the best version of myself that I am supposed to be. So I hope it's not very ambiguous, because I feel like there's so many
No.
sub lessons on that. But I try to. You said the most valuable, and like that captures is like one of the biggest things that I stand for. Yeah, like I mean, there's sometimes I know that this is Ibukun being an insecure self, but just being aware of that, being conscious of that, and learning to journey back. You know. Um,
I love that answer. I love it, and I don't think when you lay in your bed tonight, you could think of a different an answer that would top that, because love really is the answer. And I like the way you put it, the perspective you put it in, understanding that, you know, as humans, we will falter one way or the other. But it's having that awareness of knowing that, this is just for lack of a better way of saying it, this is a lesser version of the whole person that you are. And having that awareness to journey back to that whole being. I love the answer so much. Thank you for sharing. So
Alright.
it seems like I want to assume that you've had some opinions or perspectives on certain things in life that have changed over time.
Oh,
So yeah,
okay. Oh my
I
gosh.
should have
Okay.
I should have warned you. But can you share like an opinion or perspective on something? It could be anything at all that life has gotten you to shift that perspective.
That's a very good one. Can you prime my mind a little bit?
Um,
Maybe tell me what yours is, and then something will come up on my side.
okay. Now you're putting me on the spot. Well, one of the things I was thinking about lately, which is how everyone has their own journey, right? I know it's kind of cliche, but having that understanding, like there are no shoes in life, you know, it's everyone has that journey, and it's up or the onus is on you to figure out what it is that you were called to do, and then finding a way to follow through on that, and not looking at other people or depending on, people's instructions as a
Yeah.
way to live life. Yeah, so that's one that comes to mind.
I think for me, it's being able to realize that. So I think so. Where I was coming from was not even being aware of how important it is to give people the space, right, to express and be, and learning to lean into that, and learning to just enjoy it, as opposed to, okay, this is what is in my mind, I need to share it, and that's it. So I'll say I've experienced, and I'm still on that journey, that mindset shift of just really giving people space, of just like, just learning to sit back and sip into the moment, right? Rather than being so engulfed with what is in my mind, or what my perspectives are, or just allowing myself to learn from the moment, allowing myself um to have whatever preconceptions I had about someone or a thing or whatever to change
Mm.
with this new information I'm receiving in this moment. Yeah, I think that's one that I think has been recent for me.
As the firstborn child, I think I can understand where you're coming from.
Why do you say that? What's the connection? I want to hear.
I have younger siblings. I have,
Mhm.
a twin sister, and it kind of relates to my own perspective shift, as someone who values self improvement. And there was a time in my life where I was, you know binging on self help books and stuff like that. That kind of made me, for lack of a better word, judgmental. I'm just going to
Mhm.
call it judgmental. You know, thinking things should be done a certain way. You know, but with experience, with maturity, I've come to understand that everybody has their own journey, and it's up to you to meet them
Right.
wherever they are. And
Yeah.
just being able to take going back to what you mentioned earlier, being able to love them like that. you know
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I love it.
so can you share, before we go into some unconventional deep philosophical questions, not
It
like we
goes
just,
deeper than this. Oh my gosh.
yeah. Okay, you share like a insignificant, I think you've kind of answered this question, but let me just ask it. Can you share an insignificant moment in your journey that at the time it seemed insignificant, but you know, looking back in hindsight, that was actually a very pivotal moment in your life?
Oh wow. What did you say? You said that I might have touched. What do you think it is that I've touched on already?
I don't want to give you expo, but I was thinking maybe it's like, the experience with your teacher, you know, but that's kind of, looking back, that's significant. So that's why I ended up asking it.
In the moment, it doesn't feel significant. It doesn't feel significant. I'll say it's like some conversations I've had with my brother over the past year plus. Um, because my brother is someone who, I mean, like I said, I'm the first of five, so obviously this is my younger brother. He's someone who I admire a lot. I mean, for his heart. He's not the kind of person that you would notice first in a room. He's very subtle, very, so there's a higher likelihood you would probably not notice him. But like, there's so much, like his mind, and I always tell him this: his mind is a very beautiful place. And I'll say a lot of things that I'm doing now, like going on the entrepreneurial journey, and even just the courage to do that, comes from conversations I've had with him, like just like what you call insignificant. They could go somewhere. He's about to drop me home, and then we just start this conversation. And I'm leaving the car with like, I'll give that a thought, right? So I think you know, come 20, and I was kind of like almost kind of pushed into this journey. I wouldn't say pushed, but I was kind of prepared. I was preparing over time, but you know, I think just being able to take that leap, it's a culmination from like little conversations I've had with him over the past year. So yeah, I think That would be my answer to your question.
Shout out to my brothers out there. All right, so let's go into because you have a hard stop. So let's go into some unconventional questions. First one: if you could describe your journey with a song or a fruit.
Or a fruit or a food, you said.
Fruit.
Let's just make this a fruity podcast.
What fruit or song would you pick and why?
I'm going down the fruit path. I'll say pineapple. Cause like, you know, when you say a pineapple, like, you have no idea. I mean, the spiky stuff around it at first may not be the most attractive thing to it, right? Like, you may think like, oh, there's probably nothing that great with cutting this fruit, or even just the thought of having to cut through a not so smooth surface of the pineapple. But when you open it up and, you know, like, there's the hard core in the middle and there's the soft parts around, right? So now relating that to my journey, I'll say it's like the fact that, like, at first, you know, there's certain things or certain paths that I've taken that on the outside may not have looked like the most palatable thing, you know. But when I've had to do the work, I can enjoy the succulence of the fruit. And reference to the hardcore, I think I'm definitely someone who may seem like a softie on the outside, but, you know, I think when you come down to it, I think I'm a lot tougher than I even give myself credit for. And obviously that reflects in my journey as well. So yeah.
Love that. Love that. So if your life was a book, what would you call this current chapter?
Hey, I've said it now. Gold mine.
Gold mine, okay. And what would be the title of the whole book?
Hey. Okay, I mean, I'll say the title of the whole book would be actually a title of a book I've
Digging.
had the aspiration to write, you know, and I'll title it, and I hope nobody copies this title because I'll come for you, but I'll title it Made to Be Whole.
Copyrighted.
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine your life was a journey, right? What vehicle are you traveling in? It could be car, plane, water, whatever, motorcycle. What does that say? What vehicle are you traveling in, and what does that say about your approach to life?
I'll say at different stages, I've traveled in different vehicles.
You're the first
You
person
know,
that's given and answered the question in that way. That's pretty
really.
interesting. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So at this current phase, have you packed the car and you're now digging the gold mine or
I'm
what?
sorry. I think it actually feels like I'm paddling through one.
Okay, okay. Why?
I used a motorcycle to get to the river. So we've packed the motorcycle now.
Okay.
We took the boat and we're paddling.
Why? I want to hear why.
I think the chapter prior to this, like just before where I am right now, felt a lot like a smooth ride,
Mm,
somewhat. Not to say it didn't have its challenges. I think it was even more so that it was interesting because in that space where it seemed like even everything was going great, there were still some mental battles I had to fight. So maybe we can relate to that as like, okay, you're on a motorcycle and then the wind is still slapping your face or whatever, but you're still getting to where you need to get to on time. And then here I'm in a place where there's a little bit more work to move forward. You know, you can like you have almost kind of like more control of the progress in a way, but you can see the light, you can see the next phase, and you're like, yeah, it's definitely worth me going through this paddling effort. Yeah.
and if I may, if you would allow me, it's just thinking about it is like you're also learning how to use the flow of the waves to move in the direction you want to go. Just thinking about your story, I like that. I like that. So if you had a if you could have a 1 hour conversation with any historical African figure,
African. Okay.
yeah, Dead or alive? Who would you pick and why?
Who would I pick? African descent, or they have to be African African? Can they be African American?
Okay, we'll take that.
No. If that was not what you intended at first, if it's African African, just let me know.
Well, I was thinking African African, you know.
Let's stick to that.
I'm just curious to know who the African American person is.
Yeah, I can tell you after. What's the name of this poet lady? She's African American. Hold on. Do I know a lot of Africans?
Is he Maya Angelou you're thinking about?
Maya Angelou.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I mean, obviously Nigerians are like historically, but I don't think there's anybody I would ever look at as like, this is. I mean, I've actually not thought about this before. What are the Africans in your? I'm just again trying to prime my mind here.
It's not about me.
No, I'm trying to prime.
But I've just for the record, I've had someone say Burna Boy. I've had someone say Wole Soyinka. I've had people say Lord Frederick, Lord
Frederick Lugard or
yeah, but
Lugard.
yeah, Lugard. So I don't know if was he African.
No, he's not African though. I actually feel like there's someone. Okay. Oh my gosh. Why do I feel like this is just escaping me? There's someone that my mind has taken note of. So let's go to the historical book. Maybe not people that are dead. Let me see people that are alive right now. Because I think the ones that are gone are not coming to mind like that. Actually, this lady, the DJ, what's her name? The October event, the shooting at the toll gate.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Lady that came out and like was showing the videos on Instagram when the shootings were happening.
She's
a DJ? Definitely my person. Sorry?
She's a DJ.
The DJ, yeah.
I have no idea.
Hold on, I'll find it because it's embarrassing that I do not remember. And probably someone is listening right now is like yelling her name. But yeah, she's my person because I mean I just really liked DJ Switch. That's right. You don't know this person, DJ Switch? Okay, all right. But I mean, I think at Lekki Toll shootings, she was one of the people that really exposed what was happening on ground. She was very courageous, and right now I believe she's on the run because obviously they're after her life because of how much she exposed these people. But I really do. I mean, I remember just hearing the story and learning and seeing all the videos, and I was just so amazed. And yeah, she's definitely someone I would love to sit down and chat with, and just to hear her background and how she was that courageous, and just the fact that she's had to stay on the low for so long because of that. And yeah, I think she
didn't know about
and want to ask questions and
So last question.
Sorry, that's too long.
That's fine. If you could solve any of Africa's problems, just one, Africa or Nigeria, since you're Nigerian, which would you pick and how would you go about doing it?
I'll say power. Power because I've just heard it come up a lot as like, oh my gosh, like we can't do this because power. I'm like, okay, can we just solve this power problem and then there's no excuse. Also just the reality of it really is that there's a lot of industries that cannot start because of the issues with power. I think there's a lot of the factories. I mean, we're somewhat limited to tech. I mean, you probably know that there's a huge demand or people going into fintech, and I think similarly there are other techs that they can explore, and I think that's the case because obviously it's not as heavily dependent on power or whatever, right? I mean, people can always find a way work around, but I mean, there are certain industries that you can't. Like, it's not like it's impossible, but obviously you're spending a lot more money just to keep the lights on, and it shouldn't be the case. Yeah, and it's just something that we've struggled for such a long time in Nigeria, and I think there's a lot of opportunities that would open up for Africans, and that could potentially improve our economy. Once we solve the problem of power.
I agree with you on that. That would be one of the first things I'll address as well, from a personal standpoint. So, if one thing I like to do is ask guests that I speak with to give me a question they want me to ask the next guest. So I have a question for you from the previous guest, but before I ask that, what question do you want me to ask the next guest?
What kind of question should it be like?
Any question at all. Any question.
Let me make this. What is one book that you would say has got you thinking, and maybe in line with your independent thinking thing, like that has kind of pivoted? It doesn't have to be a book; it could be a podcast or a conversation that has allowed you to be more independent in your thinking, or has allowed you to be more aware of that, intentional thought shaping.
Nice. It actually made me think of a question I wanted to ask you, but it skipped my mind too.
Yeah.
What's a book that you like to read, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming you do.
That's right.
So what's one book that you recommend to anybody to read?
I'm looking at my library now. I'll say, there's this book I've not picked it up in a while, but it's a book by Iyanla Vanzant, Trust. I really enjoyed reading it. I think I read it last 2.5 years ago, and it's a book that I'm like, yeah, I need to pick this up again. What I liked about the book was essentially how that it delved in with stories with, like, I don't know, some of them were probably fictional or based on real life, but it just kind of helps to highlight how important it is to build trust in yourself, and also to give people the benefit of doubt, to learn to also trust others. And I think it delved on touched on the different kinds of trust. So trust in God, trust in yourself, trust in people, trust in others. Yeah.
I'll look that up because I like the lady as a person in Yala.
Yeah. That's a Yoruba name that she has there.
Oh yeah. The Yala part, right?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
So the question from the previous guest was, what would you say keeps you wanting more from life?
Keeps me wanting more from life. I think keeps me wanting more from life. I think it's the desire to grow, and just the thought that, like, I want to have been able to have used all the opportunities that life has presented to me to the best of my ability, because I believe, like, the opportunities are gifts, and if I'm not maximizing them, like just that thought of waste is very, like, it's not something I'm comfortable with, right? So it's always thinking, like, okay, when the opportunities have been presented, how can I make the best use of this? How can I make the most impact with this? Yeah.
Love that answer. So Ibukun, this brings us to the end of our conversation.
It was nice chatting with you.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Thank you for opening up, sharing your story, and challenging me on the spot too by throwing the questions back at me.
I was just trying to buy time to think of my answer. Yeah.
Please send me the link to your EPs. I'm really curious to listen to your.
Sure. I'll send it.
And the last thing, we had spoken about, we connected based on the STEM thing you were doing, and I'm really interested in helping out in any way that you think I could be of help. But even beyond that, just if there's any way you think I could be of help, as you're digging your gold mine, just think of me as a resource.
For sure.
All right. Well, thank you
All right.
again.
Thank you so much, Luca. It was a pleasure being on here. Yeah.
Hey guys, so there you have it. We've come to the end of today's episode. I really hope you guys got some value from listening to the conversation. If that is true, here are some things I would appreciate if you could do for me. One is please go like the video or leave a comment. 2, I would appreciate if you could share this with someone in your network that you think would get some value from this as well. We find that peer-to-peer sharing and word-of-mouth marketing is the best way that this channel will grow. And last but not least, we've got some beautiful merch. One of them is this piece that I'm wearing, Jollof and Justice for All. We've got some other beautiful designs on the website. I'm going to leave the link right here. So please head over to africanmavericks.com and support the grind, support the hustle, support the vision by copying a few of our merch. And thank you in advance as you do. Until the next episode, I wish you more life, more love, more blessings.